Alright, so let's try to look at complex numbers, and this video is for those who want to cement on complex numbers, you want to understand more. So usually complex numbers are expressed in this form here, that is x plus I y. Sometimes they can be expressed as a plus ib, and in this case here it can be z being equal to a plus ib or z being equal to x plus iy. So this one is the format of complex numbers. Usually this one here is called the real part, meaning this one here is made up of real numbers, for example -2, +4, and so on. And this one here is the imaginary part. For example, the imaginary part, it can be just I, or it can be something like 3i. So this one here is the imaginary part. Apart from this one here, let me just give you now the example in this format here. So z is going to be equal to 4 plus 2i. So meaning this one here is a complex number. Now before we try to look at the addition, subtraction, and division of complex numbers, as well as multiplication of complex numbers, let me just show you something here. So let's say, for example, if you have been told to find root of +4, actually this one is just very easy and is positive or -2. Then again, if I ask you to find root of -4, you're going to say it's undefined. So this is where now the idea of complex numbers comes in. So how are we going to apply complex numbers to find root of -4? So usually one thing that you need to understand here is that root of -1 is always the imaginary part, which is I. Root of -1 is always I. So meaning to say that if you have been told to find root of -4 here, just find the root of 4, which is 2. So you can say plus or minus, but here, one thing that you need to understand here is that a complex number, since we don't want it to be a negative, it's going to be positive. So it's going to be 2. And since here we are having a negative, we are going to put I. In short, you can divide this root of -4 as root of -1 multiplied by root of 4. So you know to say that root of 4 is 2 and root of -1 is I. So if you multiply, you're going to have 2i. So that is the idea here. Now let's, for example, if you've been told to find what I to the power 2 is. So for us to know what I to the power 2 is, we are going to use this one here. So let me just introduce the squares on both sides. So if I introduce the squares on both sides here, I'm going to find that here I'm going to remain with -1, and here I'm going to have I squared, meaning to say that I squared is equal to -1. So if I give you to find 4i squared, so definitely this one is going to be 4 open bracket -1. Then if I multiply here, I'm going to get -4. So that is the idea here. Then apart from this one here, let me just do this. Let's say, for example, if we have so the first one is root of -1 is equal to I. Then the second one is root or I squared is equal to -1. Now what about I to the power 3? What is I to the power 3? So feel free to pause the video and find what I to the power 3 is. So actually here we are just building up from where we have started. So we have ended here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this I to the power 3 into I to the power 2 multiplied by I. We know to say that I to the power 2 is -1, then we need to multiply it with I. So meaning here we are going to get -I. So therefore number 3, we can say if you're having I to the power 3, this one is going to be equal to -I. So this one is very, very important. So let me just do this one. This one looks ugly. So it is -I. Then let's say, for example, if you have been told to find what I to the power 4 is, how can you go about this one? So simple. Just split this one into I to the power 2 multiplied by I to the power 2. So I to the power 2 is -1 and I to the power 2 is -1. If I multiply here, I'm going to get +1. So meaning to say that if you have I to the power 4, this one is going to be equal to +1. So this one is very, very important. So all these I'm going to apply them to answer the following questions that we are going to have. So now let's start with this one here. For example, let's say for example you have been taught to find what I to the power 36 is. How can you go about this one here? And I to the power, let's say 40, which one can I give you? Let's say I to the power 49. Okay, so I to the power 49. And then the last one, let's say for example, if I say I to the power, let's say 86. How can you go about this one here? So let me start with this one here. So what we are going to do here, I'm just going to get 36 and then divide by 4. Why am I dividing by 4? Since I know that I to the power 4 is equal to 1. So it's just very easy for me to come up with this one here. So if I divide here, I'm going to get 9. So meaning to say, if I say I to the power 4, then I open the brackets and close, then multiply by 9, I'm going to get the 6, isn't it? So I know to say that I to the power 4 is 1. And 1 to the power 9 is just going to be equal to 1. So this is how you're supposed to go about it. So try this one, try to pause the video and answer this one here. So similarly, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to get 49 and then divide it by 4. So actually here I'm going to get, if I divide, I'm going to get 12, and then the remainder is going to be 1. Okay, so the remainder is going to be 1. So I'm going to say I to the power 4, then here I'm having 12, then plus 1. Since I know that if I multiply 4 multiplied by 12, I'm going to get 48, then plus 1, I'm going to get 49. So that's the reason why I'm adding. So remember, when it comes to the indices, if you're adding the powers, meaning you're supposed to multiply the bases, the base that we have here is I. So here, I'm going to multiply I. Okay, so we have I to the power 4. If I open and close the brackets to the power 12, then multiply by I. Because here, as you can see, we have two parts. We have this part here, and then also have this part here. So that's the reason why I'm multiplying by I. So we know to say that here we are just going to get 1. Then what about this one here? We are going to get I. So 1 multiplied by I is just going to be I. So this is how you're supposed to go about this one. So try this one also. This one here, if I get 86 and then divide it by 4, what am I going to get? I'm going to get 21. And then remainder, so let me just say remainder 2. Okay, so our remainder is 2. I'm just going to do the same thing. So it is I to the power 4, then here I'm going to say 21, then plus 2. So we have two parts, this one and this one. When you're adding the powers, when it comes to the indices, you multiply the bases. So I'm going to say I to the power 4, then multiply by 21. Here we're going to get 84. Then multiply by I to the power 2. Since here we are having 2, so I need to square. Since here I just add 1. If you want, you can say 1 here. It's not going to change anything. So we know to say that here we're going just going to get 1. Then what about this one here? I to the power 2. I to the power 2, remember. I to the power 2 is equal to negative 1, isn't it? So here we're going to have negative 1. So if I multiply, I'm just going to get negative 1. So this is how you're supposed to go about these things here. Right, so let's try also to look at addition and subtraction of complex numbers. Alright, so let me start with the addition of complex numbers, and then I'm going to talk about the subtraction of complex numbers. So let's say, for example, if you have been taught to add, let's say we have 3 plus 4i by, let's say we have 7 plus 2i. How can you go about this one here? So by, we're going to introduce additional sign there. So we have 3 plus 4i, then plus 7 plus 2i. So here you need to collect the right terms. The real part or the real numbers should be on this side here, and the imaginary part should be on the other side. So we have 3 plus 7 plus 4i plus 2i. So here I'm going to get 10, then here I'm going to get 6i. So remember the format here, I was saying that it should be expressed in the form of x plus iy. So this one is the imaginary part, which is this one here, and x is the real part, which is 10. So this is how you're supposed to write your answer in that form. Now let's try also to look at other examples. So this is our example number A, this one is example B. So let's say we have 1 over 5 and then plus 23i, then we're adding by 7 minus 1 over 2, then I. Alright, so for this one here, you need to say 1 over 5 plus 23, then plus 7 minus 1 over 2i. So from there you collect the like terms. So these two are like terms, even these two are like terms. So you say 1 over 5, then plus 7 plus 23i minus 1 over 2i. So from here I can say 5 multiplied by 7, that is 35, plus 1, I'm going to get 36, then divided by 5. Then 2 multiplied by 23i, that is 46i minus I. We're going to get 45i divided by 2. So that is plus 45i, or 45 divided by 2, then I. So always need to remember that you express your answer in this form here. Start with the real part and end with the imaginary part. So those things are very, very important to understand. Now, the second one, let's say for example, if you have been told to subtract. So let's move on to subtraction. So let's say we have 7 plus 2i from, let's say we have 3 plus 4i. What are we going to have? Then as for D, let's say we have 7 minus 1 over 2i from, let's say we have 1 over 5, then plus 23i. So 23i, what are we going to have? So let's start with this one here. So we have 7 plus 2i, this one is making noise now. So from there, going to say minus, so here I'm supposed to introduce the brackets. There, the reason why I wasn't including the brackets because it was positive, so positive won't have any effect, but for negative it is going to have an effect. So from there, here we're going to have 7, then if I multiply here I'm going to get negative 3, then here if I multiply I'm going to get negative 4i. So let me start with positive 2i, then end with negative 4i. So here I'm going to get 5, then here I'm going to get negative 2i. So this is how I'm supposed to answer this one. What about this one? We have 7 minus 1 over 2i, then minus, open bracket, 1 over 4, let me say 1 over 5, and then plus 23i, and then this one is going to be 7 minus 1 over 5, and then minus 1 over 2i, and this one is going to be minus 3i, let me say minus 23i. So here we're going to get 5 multiplied by 7, that is 35, minus 1, that is 34 over 5. Then 2 multiplied by negative 23i, I'm going to get negative 46i, then minus 1, that is negative 47 divided by 2, then I. So this is how you're supposed to express your answer. So I think that is just for addition and subtraction of complex numbers. Let's try to look at division of complex numbers. So for division of complex numbers, one thing that you need to know is let's do this. We're looking at division of complex numbers. So the first thing, let's try to look at the conjugate. So before we look at division, we need to look at the conjugate. Let's say, for example, if you have z being equal to 4 and minus 3i, when you talk of the conjugate, it's just the opposite of what we have here. And usually if z is equal to this one here, meaning the conjugate is going to be z with a bar. So anything with a bar is a conjugate. So the sign is the only thing which is going to change for the conjugate. So you maintain everything, then you just change the sign. So this is the conjugate. This is the conjugate of z. So if I ask you to find what z plus z bar is, just need to, so actually they're just going to give you one thing here, which is this one here. Then for the conjugate, you just need to find for yourself. So we need to say that this one is the original, so I'm going to say 4, then minus 3i. Then we have this one, which is the conjugate, so we need to say plus 4 plus this one here. So we're going to find that these, they are going to cancel each other. Then I'm just going to remain 4 and 4. So 4 plus 4, that is 8. So that is how you're supposed to answer this one. Another example, let's say you have this one here. How can you go about it? So for this one, you need to say, start with the original one, then minus, open bracket, the conjugate. You say the conjugate is having positive here. So if I multiply the negative throughout here, I'm going to have this one here. So this time now, what is going to be cancelled are the 4's. And here I'm going to get negative 6i, negative 6i. Then from there now, you are done. So that is how you're supposed to go about this one. Now, let's try to look at division. Alright, so let's say for example we have this one here, which is 3 minus 6i. Then we are dividing by 2i. So in this case here, we need to say 3 minus 6i, then divided by 2. So what is the conjugate of this one here? Is it negative 2 or something else? Actually here, it's not negative 2, but rather it's just going to be I. So for the conjugate, you need to multiply the numerator and also the denominator. Okay, so from there, what are we going to have? If I multiply I multiply by this, I'm going to get 3i, and then here I'm going to get 6i squared. Then divided by 2i squared. So you know that I squared is negative 1. So here what are we going to have? We're going to have 3i. Then here we have negative 1. Even down here we have negative 1. So what are we going to have? Here we're going to have positive 6. So start with a real part and end with the imaginary part. Then here we're going to have negative 2. So to break this one here in the form of x plus, so x plus I, y, I'm going to have negative 3. So this one is coming from when I expand this one in this form here. And then here we're going to have this one here. Okay, so we're having negative 3 here. Then here we're going to have negative 3 over 2i. So this is how you're supposed to express. Another example, let's say for example you have 1 plus I, then you are dividing it by 3 plus 4i. So this one is just very simple. You say 1 plus I, then divided by 3 plus 4i. So here we're having a positive, meaning the conjugate is going to have a negative. And remember, the conjugate should multiply the denominator and the numerator part. So in this case here, I'm multiplying 1 multiplied by 3, that is 3. Then 1 multiplied by 4i, that is 4i. Then I multiplied by 3, that is positive 3i. then I multiplied by negative 4i, that is negative 4i squared, then divided by. So here, if you don't want just to waste your time, you can just multiply the first part with the first part, the last part with the last part. So that is 3 multiplied by 3, that is 9. Then 4i multiplied by 4i. Here, I'm going to get negative 16i squared. So where is this one coming from? So if we multiply here, 3 multiplied by 3, that is 9. 3 multiplied by negative 4i, that is 12, which is negative 12i. And then positive 4i multiplied by 3, that is positive 12i. And eventually these, they are going to cancel each other. So that's the reason why I'm emphasizing that you just multiply the first part with the first part and the last part with the last part. Now remember to say that I to the power 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 multiplied by negative 4, that is positive 4. So we have 3 plus 4. And then here we have 4i, or negative 4i plus 3i. And then here we have 9. Since here we are going to get negative 1, negative 1 multiplied by negative 16, that is positive 16. So actually here we are going to get 7, and here we are going to get negative I, then divided by 25. So to break this one in the form of x plus iy, we need to say 7 over 25, then minus 1 over 25, then I. So this is how you're supposed to answer this question. Alright, so another example. Let's say, for example, if you have been told to simplify. Let's say you have been told to simplify. And actually, I haven't showed you how to multiply, but multiplication is just very simple. Okay, so simplify. Let's say you have, let's do this. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have 5 minus 3i. Then again, you have 7 plus I. Then over, let's say we have 2 minus I. How can you go about this one? So feel free to pause the video and answer, and try to answer this one here. So the first thing here, I'm going to multiply the numerator part. So 5 multiplied by 7, that is 35. Then 5 multiplied by I, that is 5i. Then negative 3i multiplied by 7, that is negative 21i. Then negative 3i multiplied by positive I, that is negative 3i squared. Then divided by, then you have 2 minus I. This one here, what are we going to get? We are going to get positive 3, because I squared is negative 1. So 3 plus 35, that is 38. Then here, what are we going to get? So this one is 5. So 5i minus 21i. Actually here we are going to get 16i. Then divided by 2 minus I. Okay, so let's deal with now the conjugate thing. So here, if you find the conjugate of this one here, so this one is just going to be 2 plus 1 I, or let me just say 2 plus I, even here 2 plus I. From there you multiply 2 multiplied by 38. What are we going to get? We're going to get 76. And then 38 multiplied by I, here we're going to get 38i. Then negative 16i multiplied by 2, we're going to get negative 32i. Then negative 16i multiplied by I, here that is negative 16i squared. Then down here you multiply this one, that is 4. Then this one with this one, that is negative I squared. So this is how you're supposed to go. So let's deal with this one here. So actually I squared is negative 1, then negative 16 multiplied by negative 1, that is positive 16. Then 16 plus 76, here we're going to get 92. Then 38i minus 32i, here we're going to get 6i. And actually it's positive. And then divided by I squared, that is negative 1. Negative 1 multiplied by negative, that is positive 1. 4 plus 1, that is 5. So we need to split this one here in the format of complex numbers. And that is very, very important to remember. So this is how you're supposed to answer this one. So if you're having challenges with multiplication, let's just go through multiplication. So if you have 2i, then open bracket, 3 plus 4i. What is going to be the result? So this one is going to be 6i, and this one is going to be plus 8i squared. I squared is negative 1. Negative 1 multiplied by positive 8, that is negative 8. Then plus 6i. Then you are done. Next one. Let's say, for example, you have 1 plus I. Then here you are multiplying it with, let's say you have 2. Then multiply by 3i. What is going to be the result? So here 1 multiplied by 2, that is 2. Then 1 multiplied by 3i, that is 3i. Then here we are going to get 2i. Then here we are going to get 3i squared. So I squared is negative 1. So meaning here we are going to get negative 3. So collecting the like terms, this is what we are going to have. Okay, this is what we are going to have. So here we are going to have negative 1, and here we are going to have positive 5i. Then here you are done. Let's say, for example, you have been told to find this one here. Example 3. Let's say we say z is equal to, let's say we have 2 plus 3i. Now you have been told to multiply z with a bar. So remember, this one is just a conjugate. Okay, so let me just create some space here so that we do some assumptions. So z is equal to 2 plus 3i. Then you have been told to find z multiplied by z with a bar. How can you go about this one here? So you know that this one here is just a conjugate. So what is the conjugate of this one? Conjugate of this one here, it is 2 minus 3i. Alright, so let's multiply. So z multiplied by z conjugate, what are we going to have? We're going to have this one, then multiply by 2 minus 3i. So from there, so this one looks like this one is just a conjugate. So just multiply this one with this one, and this one with this one. So here we're going to have 4, and here we're going to have negative 9i squared. And we know that I squared is negative 1. Negative 1 multiplied by negative 9, that is positive 9. So we have this one here, and this one is going to give us 13. Then you are done. So if you're not sure, you can just follow the order by multiplying. That is 4. Then here we are going to get negative 6i. Then here we are going to get positive 6i. Then here we are going to get negative 9i squared. So these, they are going to cancel each other. So that is how you're supposed to go about this one. Now let's try to look at other examples just for clarification. Okay, so we have example number 1. Let's say you have been given z, which is equal to 5 minus 3i. Okay, so here for this one here, I'm going to ask you to find what z plus z conjugate is. Then the second one, you need to find what z conjugate minus z is. Now let me just do this. Okay, then for the third part, you need to find what z multiplied by z conjugate is. So to start with this one here, this one is going to be equal to, let me start with the original one. So since it is positive, I'm going to say positive. Then the conjugate, just need to change the sign there. So it's positive 3i. So from there, you can see that these, they can cancel each other. Then here, what are we going to have? We're going to get 10. Right. But if they say, give the value, then you need to write it in this form here. But if they are saying you need to express it in this form here, how can you express this one? So you need to say 10 plus 0i. So this is how you're supposed to write if they ask you to write it in this form here. Then the second one, we have the conjugate. The conjugate is 5 plus 3i. Then we have minus, open bracket, we have 5 minus 3i. Then from here, what are we going to have? We're going to have 5 minus 5. And then that is 3. Then here, negative multiplied by negative, that is positive. Okay? Then these, they are going to cancel each other. Then here, what I'm going to get is 6i. But if the question is asking you to write it in this form, you need to say 0 plus 6i, like that. And then the last part, we are multiplying the original part with the conjugate. So if you are multiplying the original part with the conjugate, I've already told you that you need to multiply the first part with the first part, the last part with the last part. So here we're going to get 25, and here we're going to get negative 9 I to the power 2, which is 25. And then this one's going to be plus. So if I add here, I'm going to get 34. So this is how you're supposed to handle such questions. And then let's try to look at other examples for division. So for division, let's say for example, you have been given open bracket 2 plus I squared, then divided by, let's say you have 1 plus I. So this one is our first example. Then the second example is going to be open bracket I plus, or let me just say 1 plus I. And then again, let's say we have 2 plus I squared, and then divided by, let's say we have 1 plus 2 I squared. How can you go about this one here? So let's start with this one here. So for this one, if I expand this one here, I'm going to get 2 plus I and 2 plus I. Mind you, this one here is not the difference of 2 squares. So you need to write it in this form here. And then you divide by 1 plus I. So from there, you multiply. This one multiplied by that one, I'm going to get 4 plus 2i plus 2i plus I squared. Then divided by 1 plus I. So from there, here we know to say that I to the power 2, that is negative 1. So 4 minus 1, then 2i plus 2i, that is 4i. Okay? So here what are we going to have? We are going to have 3, then plus 4i, then divided by 1 plus I. Here you multiply by the conjugate, numerator and the denominator. So this one multiplied by this one, what are we going to have? We are going to have 3, then 3 multiplied by I, we are going to get negative 3i. Remember here we are having a negative, so this one multiplied by that we're going to have, we're going to have 4i. And then here we're going to have this one squared, then divided by. So remember, first part with the first part, the last part with the last part. Then what are we going to have? So here we're going to get positive 4 plus 3, that is 7. Then here we're going to get plus I, then divided by. Here we're going to get negative 1 multiplied by negative 1, that is positive 1. So actually here we're going to get 2. Splitting these, we are going to get 7 over 2 plus 1 over 2, then I. So this is our final answer actually. Now let's try to look at this one here. So that one we have 1 plus I, then we have 1 plus 2i, then squared, then divided by 1 plus 2i squared. So how can you go about this one here? So let me deal with the numerator part, then I end with the denominator part. So for this one, let me start with this one. So we have 1 plus 2i, then 1 plus 2i. So for this one, what am I going to have? I'm going to have 1 plus 2i plus 2i plus 4i squared. Then here I'm going to have 1 minus 4. Then here I'm going to have 4i. So actually this one is just going to be negative 3 plus 4i. So this is what I have on this part here. So let me just write that one. So we have 1 plus I, then negative 3 plus 4i, then divided by. So let me also deal with this part here. So for that part, we have 1 plus 2i, then again we have 1 plus 2i. So here we're going to have 1, then here we're going to have this one, even here, then here we're going to get 4i squared. So here we're going to get negative 4. So 1 minus 4, that is 3, which is negative 3. Then here, if I add, I'm going to get 4i. So actually, even here I'm getting the same thing. So that is this one plus this one. As you can see, this one and this one, they're just the same, isn't it? Yeah, they're just the same. So from there now you multiply. This one multiply by that. Just continue from here. So we have 1 plus I. So if I multiply here, I'm going to get negative 3, then negative 3i plus 4i plus 4i squared. Here I'm going to get negative 4. Here I'm having negative 4, so that is negative 7. Then here I'm going to get positive I. So that is what I have on top. So we have negative 7 plus just say I plus I, then divided by negative 3 plus 4i. So I need to multiply by the conjugate. The conjugate is the opposite. So remember, when it comes to the denominator part, don't even waste your time, just multiply this one with this one, and so on. So let me multiply now. So negative 7 multiplied by negative 3, I'm going to get positive 21. Then negative 4 multiplied by 7, I'm going to get positive 28. This is 28. Let's write it nicely. That is positive 28i. Then let's come to this one. I'm going to get negative 3i. Then here I'm going to get negative 4i squared. Then divided by negative 3 multiplied by negative 3, that is 9. Then here I'm going to get negative 16 squared. From there, I know to say that this one is going to be positive 4. So positive 4 plus 28, I'm going to get, not 28, but 21. So 21 plus 4, I'm going to get 25. Then here, I have negative or positive 28i minus 3i, which is also 25i, then divided by. So here, I squared, that is negative 1. Negative 1 multiplied by negative 16, that is positive 16. Positive 16 plus 9, that is 25. So here we can just reduce the numbers, isn't it? So as a result, what are we going to have? We're going to have 1 minus I. So this one is our final answer. So that is how you're supposed to answer that.